Hey, I'm just super excited to be able to welcome Daya to our session. I think you're going to hear some really, really interesting insights on just making doctors become Superman, essentially. I guess Daya, before we start that, people can read your bio, like understand your like very accomplished background there. Like, there's something like that, like something interesting in my background that you don't see in the normal official bio.
Right. Hi, everybody. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time, and Milton, and thank you so much for organizing this. I'm really excited to share some of my experience.
Yeah, you're
Um,
very, very
well,
welcome. Maybe you can share with you, maybe like, how did you get into the healthcare? Like, how, what made you got into this whole area?
yeah, it's pretty interesting question. So I started my career as a software engineer, and then as a network admin, taking care of
Mm,
technology in a company which was doing medical transcription
mm,
back in India. So
okay.
it was in 90s. It was pretty new to the industry. The transcription was uh, very few people had electronic medical record system.
Hmm.
Um, some of them were still using a tape recorder to record the dictation. Then
Okay.
we used to go and grab the dictation and then send it to a transcriptionist. So that's the company I was involved with.
I
Uh,
see you.
and then, yeah, and we sold that company to Nuance Communication in
Okay.
2007. Yeah,
Nice.
the company.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a while now. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that once again, right?
Also, I'm pretty sure you could.
Yeah, yeah. So we did that, and then we were doing other stuff. And in 2016, we started getting phone calls from our past customers. They were like, "Hey, we have this EMR system called
Yeah.
Epic or Cerner.
Yeah.
Do you guys do scribing?" We are like, "What is scribing?" So we had to kind of go and then do some market research, and we thought it's a good
Mhm.
transition from being a transcription company and doing scribing.
Awesome.
So, yeah, that's how it all started.
Very cool. So Daya, I also know that you're like ice racing, autocross racing. So you're one of those like the
Yeah,
adrenaline junkie to just like
yeah, yeah. I mean, one of my manager back in Nuance kind of hooked me up into that, and I was like,
okay.
"What is this?" Because you have to drive your car on a frozen lake,
Oh,
which
cool.
makes that sound when you are there, and there are 100 people, the 100 cars there. But I kind of got hooked onto that, and I did do a few ice racing and then autocross. But
Oh,
yes,
that is
uh,
just awesome. Though. Hopefully one day I can maybe like ride with you, just experience what
oh,
that's like.
oh yeah, it's really fun. Definitely, yes.
Okay,
Um,
awesome
so
there. How about this? Maybe I'll turn the floor over to you to present the Scribe EMR and your insights of the whole industry, and then later on you will open up to all the attendees to ask questions, and we'll also switch over to see a live demo. And how about now just
mhm.
switch over the floor to you?
Sounds good. Thank you again, Milton.
Yeah.
So, um, so we all know we all are patients. Most of us, are, I think, we go to a doctor, and what do we usually see our doctors doing? Um, Mostly, first thing they do is that they come in the exam room and they log into their computer and they pull up your record and then start looking at your past medical history. What all the medications you are taking, and they're usually their back is facing you, and they're asking questions after questions saying, okay, what are the things, what medication are you taking? Oh, you're taking antibiotic. Okay, you're on multivitamin. Okay, what brings you on here today? And then you're just talking to their back. They are busy in feeding the data onto the EMR, because that's one of their uh, must have, right? If you don't document the patient encounter or the visit, then you won't get the reimbursement from insurance company. So creating a clinical documentation is a must. How did that happen is because of EMR system. That's a mandatory system wherein data entry has become a primary goal of these providers. And I talked to this provider and then I asked them how things are going, and they're like, things are going great, but I went to medical school to be a doctor, but they made me as a typist, a highly paid, expensive typist. And then to reflect my statement, I put in this Medscape survey of the provider. As you can see, all of them, most of them, I think 75 or 80% of them are sick of this documentation. They just want to do their job, seeing the patient and treating them and enjoy their family life. And new technology, what we have, is keeping them away from doing their primary goal. How did this happen? As I said, it's mostly because of EMR, right? So how extensive this documentation burden is, right? You see those two circles there. One is whatever activity they do, about 45% of the activity is contributed for clerical activity, right? Non-clinical. Either it can be getting a pre-authorization for a medication, or typing the note, sending the prescription, ordering a lab or radiology. It's not really clinical, wherein they have to go through many multiple clicks to get those orders in the EMR system. So it is definitely driving them literally insane. Some of them are contemplating on leaving the practice and doing something else, because it reached that point where they don't want to do this anymore. So there are various solutions out there to mitigate this documentation burden. Some use speech recognition software. Some have in-person scribe, where the human being, a scribe, follows a doctor when they see patient and they do the charting. And the other option is nowadays becoming really popular, is the virtual scribing, right? So how is the virtual scribing is helping them is pretty much our scribes, or the virtual scribe, listen to this doctor talking to a patient and do the documentation live, right? We have a trained scribes. They know exactly how to interpret the patient and the clinician conversation into a structured document. So as you can see on the slide here, I tagged it as clinical documentation improvement. It's a CDI, because that's essentially what we are doing, or the scribes are doing. They are trying to capture the data as much as possible and let the doctor or the provider do their thing, what they're good at. They went to school, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to be a doctor. So we want them to treat the patient and look at the patient eye to eye. And we know that for sure, some of the provider, what we have, they see up to 45 patients a day, right? Just think about a doctor who's already busy with the documentation, has to see 45 patients a day and also balance their family life, right? In our case, what we do is that the scribe is there just listening and typing everything, so that they don't really have to touch the keyboard, except for signing off on the report, right? And then often providers do forget some of the things they must ask a patient. Let's say if the patient is a smoker, the clinician is supposed to kind of do tobacco counseling, that, hey, let's say patient name is David. David, you are smoking for many, many years. Smoking is bad. Here are some of the health impact, negative impact of smoking. Um, so that these type of information captured in the documentation will improve their reimbursement. If not, then it's pretty much a missed opportunity, we call that as. And not only that, it's important for patient to know the reinforcement is what needed for patient to kind of stay away from these bad habits. So the virtual scribe has a capability to remind the clinician by sending a message through VSee that, doc, please, the patient is obese, his BMI is beyond what's allowed. Please do a diet counseling. So those are some of the things our virtual scribes do. We also wanted to push the envelope a little bit and then see, hey, is there any way we can kind of review the documentation of the provider and then see, are there any other missed opportunity we can find, and so that our scribe can educate them. So what we do is that we have a certified coders who will review the clinical documentation, and they make a list of list of things they could capture in the documentation and communicate that to the scribe. Since scribe works with the provider, they remind the doctor that, doc, we may have to expand the HPI, history of present illness, that is, or we may have to expand the review of system or past medical history. So they do that for each and every patient. With that, you avoid or minimize the missed opportunities in the documentation. Okay, how does the virtual scribe work, right? It's all great. We are helping the doctor, but how does it work in real world? So what happens, you're seeing in this rendition here, where the scribe logged in to an EMR system and charting the conversation live, right? That is step one. The scribe logs into the EMR system, and the provider just checks and then see how many patients are there for that day. And then the provider carries a laptop with him or her to the examination room. So our scribe is listening to a patient, and the provider, in some cases, the patient comes with their family member. They're listening and documenting it live right there. So at the end of the visit, the documentation is ready. The provider will kind of review that and then see how the documentation has taken place. If anything is missed or anything, the provider will ask a question that, hey, did you capture that? The patient is taking 10 milligram of ibuprofen. Did you capture that? Did you capture the smoking status, what have you? And once that is all done, they sign off on it and then move on to the next patient. So essentially, with the virtual scribe solution, we are saving about 2.5 to 3 hours of their precious time every day. So either they can see more patients, or they can have family time and spending time with the friends or family members. So our scribe not only do just a scribing of the note, they also do ancillary services. So you see there are two functions here. The clinicians are bogged down not only by typing, doing other stuff which I mentioned, the medication lab orders or radiology orders such as X-ray and MRI, or looking up the chart itself, right? Let's say you go to the doctor with the back pain. They want to know how was the pain level last time, right? So they have to fish through the EMR to find the information, which takes time. So what we provide, our service, what it does is provider can kind of summon our scribe saying that, hey, scribe, can you pull up last visit? So they can share that information on the laptop through VSee. That's what we use. It's been fantastic using VSee. And then they look at it. briefly, and then say, oh, okay, so last time when you were here, your pain level was 10, but now it seems like it's at 6. All right, let's see what's going on. So that one of the function. And then our scribes also fill the form. For example, pain medication, if you're prescribing a pain medication, you need to fill the consent form, usually for the opioid medication. So our scribe will take care of that. So pretty much whatever is not clinical, anything which involves a typing and almost like a clerical activity is offloaded to a scribe. A scribe will do that for them, for each and every patient. So what's the technology we use, and how do we connect a dedicated scribe with the clinician? It's pretty straightforward. We use VSee. We are here with VSee Milton. Thank you so much for the fantastic platform. That's not my plug; it's a fact. Because we wanted to kind of like, hey, we may have to develop a software to connect the scribe with the clinician. And then we thought, it's kind of reinventing the wheel, and also it's going to be a hard sell with the hospital, because hospital IT wants to know that, hey, what encryption are you using? Does it have SSL in it? Is it HIPAA compliant? So we evaluated the software, and then we decided to go with VSee, because you don't have to just reinvent the wheel and then have VSee installed on the provider side and also scribe side, and then connect them together. It can be installed on a laptop or an iPad, in some cases smartphone, so they can converse each other, they can see their screen, and they can send text message back and forth. And of course, they can send the information, such as if they have to send some file securely to each other. So what is the ROI? It all sounds great. What's the tangible return on investment, right? So we found so far there are 4 levers to drive this ROI. One is a patient satisfaction, right? When you start the service with the scribe, you start focusing more on patient, not on feeding the monster. That's your EMR. That completely goes away. You are just looking patient eye to eye, try to understand their disease or the condition, and then provide the treatment. What we have seen is the patient satisfaction going up to 93% post virtual scribing from 87, which is pretty amazing. And so far, we have not had any instances where patients saying that, hey, we don't want somebody hearing our conversation. It's other way around. They love it because the doctor is not looking at the monitor, he's looking at the patient. And physician satisfaction definitely goes up. No more typing. Just do your job, go home at 5 o'clock, and that's it. And we have also heard from the provider that, Daya, because of this scribing services, I'm going to be a doctor for a few more years. I was planning to retire. And then one of the Dr. Khan is in Michigan. Used to spend 2 hours every day just to kind of type everything before going home. 7:30, 8 o'clock goes home, and then he's tired and has no time spending with the family. But now he spends only 25 to 30 minutes. Few minutes actually. He reviews about 25 to 28 charts, what Scribe already produced, and reviews it. And then once the Scribe becomes familiar with the workflow and the style, it becomes even much more efficient. They don't really spend too much time in fixing any errors, if at all any. And then provider longevity, as I mentioned, does go up with the scribing services. The next is the documentation quality does go up, as I mentioned before, because the scribe captures more information than what provider would have. we have seen the documentation where not even 2 lines were captured in the review of system. The patient has a back pain, and I checked it, still has a back pain, told him to take medication, Advil, asked him to come back next week. Done. So those kind of, I mean, I don't blame the provider for taking a short notes, because he has to see 30 patients and he has to do other stuff. This is someone wanted to get this thing done. So that goes away with the scribing. And the physician productivity does go up, because they either you go home at 5 o'clock or you can see more patients, right? And then, yes, the reimbursement, when we did the study, I'm going to show that in one of my slides, the reimbursement itself went up by 22% on average with the primary care. That's, again, it's an obvious after effect of having a scribe document more information in the chart. So we try to quantify the ROI spread. Does the ROI improve across the board? Let's say we have a practice has 70 doctors. How many of them are really getting benefit of the scribing services, right? So what we found out was scribing works, or scribing has a positive ROI up to 98% of the provider, because rest 2%, they were already doing the documentation. Some of them use Dragon, and some of them are really good in typing, right? I've seen doctors, they are like literally Superman, kind of like Captain America doctors. They are good in everything. For them, scribing did not have a positive impact, and that's the reality of the industry. And then we understand, and then we tell them that, hey, might as well not give them a scribing. Let them do what they are doing, and talk to them and see whether the documentation is having any adverse impact onto their practice. If they say no, then might as well don't fix what's not broken, as they say. So how do we do the implementation? First thing is to understand the provider's pain point, because each one of them have different pain points, right? What is that bothering you in the clinical documentation? Because we would like to provide a tailored solution instead of giving them a same blueprint. What worked for other doctors or the practice might not work for this one. So we understand that, and we want to know the non-clinical staff members' expectation. What is that they're expecting? Do they want their provider burnout to go down, or do they want them to see more patients, or do they want them to capture more information so the reimbursement becomes much more optimum, or what is it? So we interview, we understand what they are looking for, and we also analyze the claims data. Where are you right now, right? So that we capture a baseline by looking at the historical charts and also analyzing their claims data. Then we suggest that let's do a pilot, right? You have 100 doctors. I would recommend that pick maybe 20, 30 doctors. Let's do a pilot for a month and then see how our scribing program had any impact on their data, right? And then we present that to them, and then we identify who all are the provider are a good candidate for virtual scribing. So we have about 300 plus happy providers across US, as you are seeing those stars on the map. Pretty much everyone loves it. And some of them say that this thing is done so good for them that they will quit the practice if the management pulls the scribing services. So we are happy about that. So what next? How is it? How the AI is going to transform the current workflow, which is kind of human powered, less technology except the VSee, how the automation is going to bring about. And I've heard I've attended seminars on AI. I've spoken to people who are working on the technology. And since I worked in Nuance for many years in research and development, um, my vision is to leverage the audio and the natural language processing technology and then make our scribe more productive, right? And somehow automate some of the process, such as order entry, queuing up, not sending the prescription, just queuing up the prescription and presenting it to a provider so they can review and then hit send. So trying to automate as much as possible, because I truly believe that in order to achieve 100% automation with the AI might take probably 5 years. I don't know. However, by using AI, you can empower the human scribes to be more efficient and more accurate. So that's what we are marching towards, and we started working on the pilot program right now, to measure the effectiveness of AI and also NLP technology. So I wanted to do a quick demo, Milton, if you're okay with that, just to show them how does this work, by simulating a real patient and doctor interaction. And I have one of our scribe here. You'll be able to see the documentation coming to life on an EMR system.
Oh, yeah, definitely. In fact, I think one of our attendees asked specifically about are they able to like see a live demo. So
Yes. Can we do a quick poll?
yeah, I think how about we just in fact definitely in there. I think John is asking to able to see a live demo.
Okay.
Yeah,
let me go ahead and get Pooja in and we'll get this. So
thank you, Anne.
And move Milton off in a moment. So just all right. So Pooja, okay. Okay. So okay. Hi, Pooja.
Pooja, can you hear us?
Hi, Anne. Yes, sir, I can hear you.
There we
All
go.
right. Perfect.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and video on, and I apologize. So I'm going to be playing the patient.
All right, so good. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Pooja. So what we're going to do, we are going to simulate a real patient and provider encounter. Anne is going to be a patient, and I'm going to play a clinician role. So let's assume that Anne is already there in one of my exam room in a private practice. And I enter and say, hi, can you see Pooja's screen, Anne?
I can. We can get a quick, do a quick poll. Can you raise your hands if you see the screen? Is everybody seeing? Yeah. So I think everyone's seeing it. Yeah.
Perfect.
So.
All right. So I'm your primary care provider. I walked into the exam room. And I say, hi, Anne. How you doing? What brings you in here today?
Hi, Daya, or I should say, Dr. Daya. I'm having some shoulder some shoulder issues, some neck pain, just kind of general upper back issues.
Okay. Sorry to hear that. When did this pain started?
Well, it's been going on for about 3-4 years. So, but just recently, it's just been a lot more painful than normal.
Okay. How is the pain? That is 0 being no pain, 10 being really, really bad pain. What's the level, you think?
I think it's like maybe 6, 7, whereas before maybe it was just 2, 3.
Okay. And does the pain increase if you lift anything or any kind of action to make it worse, or?
Not particular. There's no particular emotion that is causing it.
Okay. Are you taking any medication, Anne, for this?
No, I don't really like medication.
Okay. Got it. And what do you do for a living? Because I just want to make sure it's not related to like a carpal tunnel or something like that.
I do a lot of, I'm on the computer all the time. So
I see. Okay. And you said you don't have pain on your left shoulder, only on right?
Yeah, it's mostly on my right.
Okay. So, Anne, what I was going to suggest is I'm going to prescribe you a painkiller, 400 milligram of ibuprofen. Please take that twice a day for a week or so. And if the pain doesn't subside, then come and see me next week. I will recommend you to kind of take it easy, not to lift anything heavy. And if you're okay with it, I would also like to start a physiotherapy and see if that helps you at all or not. So that's what I would like to do, not to go crazy. Not yet. If the pain doesn't go away, then probably we'll think about it when you're here next week. Do you have any other question for me, Anne?
Okay. The ibuprofen, are there any other side effects I should be aware of?
So ibuprofen is been there for many years now. I don't think there is any serious side effects, but I would recommend you to take the ibuprofen after eating some food. Try to avoid taking ibuprofen for empty stomach. And then if you drink too much coffee, I would recommend you to take it easy on that. But other than that, you should be fine. But if you notice any kind of side effect or any changes in your body, just please call my office and we can try to prescribe you alternative medication for your pain.
Okay, that sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you, Anne. So that was perfect. You're a good patient, Anne.
Thank you.
So as you saw, the documentation, I'm a clinician. I was looking at patient virtually, but our Scribe was able to document pretty much everything, and she will also queue up ibuprofen for me to review and then send it to pharmacy. But pretty much I'm done with the documentation for Anne's visit. I can now move on to the next patient. So that's the demo. Should we start the Q&A, Milton?
Yeah, I guess I think I'm waiting for Anne to maybe make me back into a presenter.
Okay.
Well, Daya, can you hear me? Okay, I'm back.
There you go.
Yeah, let me turn on my camera. Do this. Okay, great. Okay. Daya, thank you so much for that great presentation, live demo in there. I guess for the audience in there, so we actually are using a new system from the, last year we're using the GoToWebinar. We're trying to get response system. By the time that if UI change it, but please still like type your question there so we can start get them queued up. And yeah, I guess one thing I was really struck by, like your Scribe does more than just Scribe, right? So like I was, like if I heard about this, but you're actually doing all these like helping with the checklist with the physicians and like that. So within your customer base, do like all the doctors, either the standard thing you do was only certain doctor do the service.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, because
the audio was a little bit.
Oh, apologize in there.
No, thank you.
Can you hear me okay better now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay. I apologize. So I was, so during your presentation, I was really sort of intrigued by, so your Scribe actually is not just doing the documentation, but you're actually also helping the physician, like a checklist type of thing. Do you do this as a part for all your customers or only subset?
Great question. So that's one of the things we truly believe is what are the activity, non-clinical activity we can take on ourselves that is on our scribes so that we can free up the doctor, right? To answer your question, yes, we not only just type the encounter or the documentation, we also do other things. That is, one is, as I mentioned, reminding the provider, queuing up the orders. In some cases, the provider says that, hey, you know what? I have a huge library of my medical journals. I'm going to send pictures. Can you please type that and create a database for me so I can go and then search and see what's there in those journals? So we offer that for pretty much everyone across the board. And 99% of them say, yes, we want your Scribe not only do the documentation, but do the other stuff also, right? The recent example is one of our largest customer want us to do something called a preventive examination reminder, right? That is, let's say a provider has suggested you to get a calcium score done. It's a CT scan wherein they put you under a machine and they take a CT scan of your heart and then see whether you have any kind of calcification, because that's one of the indicator whether you're going to have any heart-related issue down the line, right? So the cardiologists do suggest that a patient, but in busy life as we are today, the patient they put it off, right? Because they have better things to do. I feel healthy. Why should I go through a CT scan machine? So what our scribes are doing is going through those patients and then see what all are the examination or the lab, for example, to see the cholesterol, and then see whether those things had taken place. If not, then we remind the provider that, hey, doc, you did ask Anne to do the CT scan for the coronary calcium score, but she has not done it. Can you remind her? Right?
Nice.
So there are many such.
Yeah. That's really like wonderful. It is like nice. It's really doing way beyond what a Scribe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Daya, one question is like, so do you, does a doctor tell the patient that there's a remote Scribe in this session? Like, how do you need to notify the patient there's someone listening to the conversation? Or?
Great question. So each and every facility has a different way of communicating with the patient. Just to give you an example, we have a large practice in New York, upstate New York. They let the patient know when they check in, right? It's almost like release of information. They have to sign that, hey, we are the doctor, your doctor, Dr. David, is going to be using a virtual Scribe. Someone is listening to you on the provider discussion. and they're typing that note on the computer so that provider don't have to type it. They're going to look at you eye to eye and then understand your problem.
Okay,
So
nice.
often what we have seen is they love it, right?
Got it. Okay, that's nice.
Great. And in other cases, again, the doctors are all, they have a different personality, right? In some cases, the doctor decides to introduce our scribes to a patient,
Okay.
right? Say, hey, I have a talking computer. Say hi to my scribe.
Okay.
Right? In some cases, we send them a poster in their examination room, and they put it saying that, hey, the conversation is being tied by a remote scribe. If you have any question, please talk to your clinician.
Okay. Awesome. In there, that's great. So I guess I guess you just answer our audience member John was asking, is there a human scribe working remotely? The answer is yes. I guess who's doing the typing on the record, the remote scribe working remotely.
Yes.
Thanks,
yes.
John, for the question. I guess we have another question from Robert asking, how about in terms of integration with the asynchronous telemedicine? Like, how do you see your scribe system working with maybe within that framework?
Great question. The reason I say it's a great question is that right now we are running a pilot where one of our customers started the telemedicine as a part of their growth strategy, and they're already our customer. We do scribing for their providers, and now they want to have our scribe be a part of that conversation virtually, because the doctor is there somewhere, the patient is somewhere, and of course the scribe is also somewhere, and then they are all going to be in one room, a virtual room, a scribe logged into EMR, and they are documenting it while the clinician is talking to the patient. So we are already running a pilot on it, and so far it's going great.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. I think Robert just asked a really interesting question, I guess. So he asked things like, can the scribe talk? I guess I'm assuming within the context is that the scribe want to notify that your doc is where the scribe is 100% silent.
Yeah. So what we do is while the provider is talking to patient, just like happened, I was playing a clinician role and Anne was a patient. Scribe would not talk. Scribe is on mute. What scribe can do is follow the instruction of provider. If I would have asked my scribe to pull up Anne's X-ray, for example, she would have pulled up. Or if I had asked my scribe to pull up a lab, she would have pulled up and shared that screen through VSee on my laptop.
Okay.
However, before entering the exam room or after exiting the exam room, the scribe and clinician do talk to each other every day for every visit, because they just want to make sure that the chart is complete. And sometimes the scribe didn't understand or didn't hear the clinician or the patient or the family member. Then what they do is that they ask the doctor, hey, Dr. Daya, what did you say? Is it 400 milligram of Advil or what have you? Then they do converse when patient is not there.
Got it. That makes sense. One thing I noticed during the live demo, like for example, when you were going over the medication there, I know a lot of time the EMR, right? There's actually quite a, when you click on like the Epic or something you click on there, there's a little bit delay until that screen's in there. Like, does the doctor need to change their behavior, almost like a certain piece or slow down a little bit for the EMR, the screen to catch up? Or do you find it's pretty much like when you onboard a doctor, they just go through their normal, the full speed thing that the scribe somehow can make it make it work?
Good question. So our goal is not to kind of ask doctor to change their way of seeing the patient. We want to make our solution as seamless as possible. That's because the providers already have to go through hoops to get their thing done, and we don't want to go and then add another layer onto it. Hey doc, you know what? Do this instead of that. So now, what we do in order to kind of mitigate the learning curve, we have our scribe shadow the provider for 3 days, just to kind of understand what the provider, the clinician, and then we ask the provider question on some of the things what they must have done, and try to create a profile on him or her. And then we take it slow, right? Day one of going live, we ask provider that, hey, I'm going to do 3 patients today. We want you to review the chart and then give me some feedback. And then based on that feedback, I'm going to ramp up my number of notes I'll be scribing, right? So usually it takes a week or so for them to be up and running 100%. It's almost like a team effort. It's the provider and the scribe working together as a team in order to get to that 100%.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It is very complex workflow.
Right.
Because, for example, that class, they get a report, comparing, the bunch of these sort of clinical documentation improvement, I get these sort of CDI solution. I think what they find is like pretty much every one of these sort of CDIs, they had a positive, financial outcome improvement. Like, do you have a sense between all the different type of solutions out there, like which one give you the most like bang for the buck, I guess? Which one maybe less, less ROI?
Yeah. So the ROI definitely does vary based on specialty and also the practice.
Okay.
But what we have seen with our data, what we have crunched so far, that pre-scribing and post-scribing ROI is always a positive.
Okay.
Right. That is, there are 3 levers of ROI, as I mentioned earlier. Either see more patient, so the ROI obviously goes up because you're seeing more patients.
I guess I also think between the two different approaches to sort of the CDI, either certain thing that's actually give you more, or really it's like certain one that will be like less.
Yes. So with the CDI, connecting the scribe with the certified coder has a maximum ROI.
Okay.
Right? Because the coder goes through the documentation for a particular provider, and they make a list of deficiencies.
Okay.
Again, it's all not a clinical, we don't change the clinical decision making, right?
Okay.
Our scribes don't suggest a doctor that, hey doc, I think Anne should go through an MRI. We don't do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? That's providers, because he went to school to decide whether she needs an MRI or not. But what we do is our coders suggest that, hey, the Dr. David, if he can expand his ROS, that is review of system, it would make his document much more comprehensive. So the scribe will give that feedback to a provider, and the provider says, yes, please go ahead and then expand your ROS and then collect more data. So it's good for everyone, not only to improve the ROI, but the documentation becomes much more detailed. So yes, I hope I answered your question there, Milton.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I guess we have Robert, the audience member, asking, I guess, is your service a 24/7 or?
So our service is basically aligns with the provider schedule.
Okay.
Right. That is, some of the providers wants to see patients during the weekend. Usually it's the urgent care, right? Because urgent care is open just like ER. So then we schedule our scribe to meet their schedule, right? And I'm just thinking, except ER, none of the private primary care provider work during the night.
Yeah.
Other than the urgent care. So it's not 24/7, but if they want 24/7, then we can provide that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a phenomenal company. I'm pretty sure if the doctor,
that's right,
24/7, you just handle that easily. Because has another question in terms of asynchronous telemedicine. I guess so. I believe that so because there's a style telemedicine where you actually don't do a video or audio visit. You just based on intake form, and then the doctor write a prescription there. So I guess in this case, can you just have the doctor just speak to the microphone or a little bit do it where like have you done that style scribing?
We have many doctors like that.
Okay.
So we offer them the live scribing, and most of them love live scribing. That's what they want. But this is a subset of clinician or providers.
Okay.
They're like, you know what? I don't want that. What I need is I just want to come out of the exam room and spend 2 minutes and then dictate what happened.
Yeah.
And you do thing. You go and then do the charting, and we do that. Yes. So we do
That
synchronous and asynchronous. Yes.
That makes sense. Okay. So, I think one of the questions I've been like dying to ask you is, right now there's like all these exciting stuff about artificial intelligence. In your presentation, you mentioned about you guys are using AI to improve the system. I mean, do you worry about like AI you become so good that you actually don't need a human scribe anymore? And if so, like what's the time horizon for that?
Yeah, I mean we did think about that. Is the scribing gets eliminated completely by having this AI? It's almost it's a paradox, right? It is the Tesla is going to make everyone, all the cars is going to become automatic driving, self-driving car or something like that. What I foresee, again, it's my own personal opinion, is that the automation is definitely going to improve the efficiency of our scribes. But in order to reach its peak, like when is it going to peak up where you don't have to do anything? It's automatically everything is done and data gets into the EMR. I would say probably in 5 years. It might happen. But there is a question there, though, that how sure are you that the machine translated or recognized data is going to be accurate, right?
Yeah.
For example, a medication such as oxycodone, 5 milligram becomes 50 milligram, the patient is dead. So we say that humans' cognitive ability is always needed to kind of validate those inputs from the machine. If not, then you are in for a surprise. I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense in there. I think they, as we're coming out to the final 2 minutes, I really appreciate like teaching us all the insight. I thought we should maybe do a like really rapid fire, just like ask 3 questions, just bang on. Like the first,
go for it.
First question is like, if there's like one lesson, one thing the audience should learn from you, in this, what is that one thing you want the audience to take away?
Well, one thing I would like to tell everyone is that the doctors went to school to become a doctor, not a clerk or a typist. And then as a patient myself or my family members, I would like doctor to see me eye to eye and understand what's going on. And then before prescribing a medication or suggesting something. So either through AI or through an unsexy solution as giving a human, a scribe who can type the record for them, or kind of, take out all the clerical responsibility from the provider and let the doctor be a doctor. That's my motto and then message to everyone.
That makes perfect. Then the second question is, what is something that you believe in within healthcare or digital health that other people, the rest of the world, do not believe yet?
Well, that's a heavy, loaded question there. So healthcare is needed for everyone, right? Doesn't matter the rich, poor, or who you are, right? Everyone has to go to a doctor. Hopefully everyone stays healthy. But And then at the same time, the healthcare is making tremendous progress when it comes to to medication and the surgery and all that. But in healthcare, the technology is adding more burden to the provider than helping them, right? So I don't know whether I answered your question in one sentence, but that's how I see it.
No, that's good. Then the final question, rapid fire, is like, so right now there's like the healthcare debate is raging and crazy. We have the upcoming presidential election coming up. President Trump may do a lot of interesting stuff. So if you can whisper into President Trump's ear, like just implant one idea within the healthcare, what would you like say to him?
Well, I mean, he has a bigger fish to fry, don't you think now?
Okay, yeah, forget about that. Just only on healthcare.
So I would tell President to make a clinician's life easier, if possible, so that you encourage the budding doctors. I mean, my daughter is going to be wants to be in medicine. She wants to be a doctor, and we want the new generation to be encouraged to become a doctor, right? Yeah. How do you do that? Because right now it's losing its glory of becoming a doctor. If you go to YouTube, you'll see tons of videos wherein they're just like, I didn't know that it's going to be this difficult to be a doctor. But yeah.
No,
to make policies help the doctors.
I guess. In fact, I will also make it even stronger. So he should mandate every doctor must subscribe to ScribeEMR. Done. You can make your life so much better. Like improve the healthcare system of the US by subscribing to ScribeEMR.
There's something like that. Well, that's going to be a huge plug, right?
Thank you so much for joining us this session. It's really I had a great time learning from you. I think our audience member. Again, I apologize for some audience member. We didn't get to everyone's question, but we passed the day. So again, when we turn this recording and put it online, we can include some of the answers in there. Again, Daya, thank you so much for the time and sharing with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. Take care. All right, bye.
Bye.